Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your daily coverage of the current meltdown happening right now in the UK. Yes, it is still going on, and from what I've seen, it ain't gonna stop anytime soon. You see, recently, as I'm sure a lot of you know by now, the UK Supreme Court decided to do something that I thought would never happen in the UK. Truly, they decided to use this thing called common sense. I know, a forgotten thing, and they decided that legally trans women are not women. Something we all knew, right? Because we don't live in a made-up, delusional fantasy land, but there are a lot of people out there who just insist on living in that place and want to push it onto everybody else. So, because the woke nonsense has gotten so out of control, this needed to happen in the court, which is also kind of concerning to think about. However, as soon as this was announced, the meltdown, it instantly began, and just recently, these woke activists who are just so outraged over this, and the thought of men not being able to go to women's spaces is just so devastating. It's kind of weird to think about, right? They're getting angry over that, but they're so outraged. They went ahead and they protested, and it wasn't just a small protest. Oh no, thousands of people went out and protested because of this new court ruling. Normal functioning society, right? Nah, you know what? It probably won't be the last time we see it either. Actually, as of making this video right now, they're probably out in the streets crying, because when are they ever not crying? But before we carry on any further with this story, ladies and gentlemen, if you could, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, let's start off with this article that goes into a little bit more detail surrounding this huge protest. As you can see, the headline says, thousands of trans rights activists gather in London after Supreme Court ruling on definition of a woman. Again, normal functioning society, right? Police are investigating after statues were targeted with graffiti as thousands of trans rights activists demonstrated in central London. Wait, hold on a second. The people who preach about being kind are out here putting graffiti on statues. It's almost like the Be Kind slogan is the biggest pile of crap anybody's heard of. The protest came days after the Supreme Court ruled the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Oh no. Trans rights groups, trade unions, and community organizations came together for what was billed as an emergency demonstration in Parliament Square in Westminster. Activists demanded trans liberation and trans rights, now with some waving flags and holding banners. Kind of confusing to me, because I don't actually know what rights these people think they're losing. If you're a dude and you're no longer being able to go into a women's space, I mean, that's not your right in the very first place. So, cry me a river. Graffiti was written on the statues of suffragette leader Millicent Fawcett and South African statesman Jan Christian Smuts in Parliament Square. The Metropolitan Police said it had launched an investigation after several statues were vandalized, and it was investigating the incidents as criminal damage. Chief Superintendent Stuart Bell said it was very disappointing to see damage to 7 statues and property in the vicinity of the protest, adding, "We support the public's right to protest, but criminality like this is completely unacceptable. We are now investigating this criminal damage and urge anyone with any information to come forward." Meanwhile, a rally and march organised by Resisting Transphobia has been taking place in Edinburgh on Saturday afternoon. Where's the transphobia? Can any of you guys let me know, because I don't see it. But let's get into some video footage now of these very stunning and brave protests. Sky News put out, thousands of trans rights activists have been demonstrating in central London and Edinburgh days after the Supreme Court ruled the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Again, this is what these people are crying over. Do you know how far society's got to fall for thousands of people to turn up to a protest because we're now talking about biological sex and facts? Get a grip, man.
Well, members and supporters of the transgender community are out here in force, walking through central London, protesting against the Supreme Court definition of a woman. They were outside the Houses of Parliament earlier, and now they're walking in and around Westminster.
I was angry, I was devastated when I read it. This is going to cost lives, and that's the truth. And you know what? I'm here to tell people that we are not the threat. If anything, we're the ones under threat.
From what?
On Wednesday, there was a judgment from the Supreme Court that said the legal definition of a woman was based on biological sex. Many people here are not happy about that.
I think the law, legislation, hasn't really dealt with the question of gender and sex in any serious way. It sort of appeals to common sense, but historically common sense changes throughout history.
What this means in reality is that trans women will not be able to use women's loos, changing rooms, or compete in women's sports. The judge in the ruling said that sex was binary, but many questions still remain about how this ruling will be implemented in reality.
No borders, no nation!
Trans liberation!
No borders, no nation!
So as you heard this journalist say, essentially this means men who identify as women can't go into women's loos, spaces, sports, etc., etc. This is what they're upset about. And you know what gets me, right? You have these women out there as well who are protesting over this new court ruling and biological sex. Yet these are the very same women who will talk about women's rights and women's safety all day long, right? But they're out there protesting for men to be able to go into women's spaces, which does affect women's safety, for example, in physical sports. How does that make any sense? Why should a woman's or girl's safety in sports again be put at risk just because one day a dude decides, yeah, you know what, I'm going to identify as a woman today? Insanity, right? But we have another account here who goes on to say, no matter what you believe about either issue, this is the stunning lack of logic we are up against. Protest chant, Palestine trans rights, one struggle, one fight. What the action? There's not many times I'm lost for words, but here we are.
One struggle, one fight. Palestine trans rights. 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 One struggle.
Yeah, I'm not listening to that again. I don't think these people really know how countries in different places in the world feel about the LGBTQ plus stuff. Get me out of this country, man. I'm being serious. We have Andy No here, who has posted thousands of trans activists and leftists gathered in London on April 19th outside the UK Supreme Court to protest the ruling that trans women are not women and that sex is biological according to the Equality Act. Video by the actual coverage, and let's take a watch. It's 40 seconds long, 40 seconds of these people crying. How delightful.
No justice, no peace.
No gender police.
No justice, no peace.
No gender police.
No justice, no peace.
No gender police.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Don't steal our rights. Yeah, let's stop listening to that. That's hurting my ears. What rights are being stolen from you? What rights have you lost? Because again, I do not know. You as a man, just because you identify as a woman, do not get to have the same rights as women. But apparently what I just said there was very controversial to say. But again, we have another video here posted by Andy No of these people so upset over this court ruling, and they're demanding the ruling be nullified. Right.
Keir Starmer! Keir Starmer! We're streeting! We're streeting! One struggle, one fight! One struggle, one fight! One struggle, one fight!
No justice, no peace.
No gender police!
No justice, no peace.
No gender police! No gender police!
No justice, no peace.
No gender police!
No justice, no peace.
Yeah, there's a big mental health issue going on. I think we should start sorting that one out next. But that is the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. If you're outside of the UK, welcome to what is going on right now. It's a great time, really is. Leave your thoughts down below on everything that you've seen. I'd like to know. If you have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video. Share this video, but until next time, it has been your very controversial host, JD. Have a great day. Stay safe. And I'm out. Peace.